The ball is rolling again in the second half of the year, and it's good. It's really good.
You know, I've now officially have a high schooler.
That's right. Good Lord.
Yeah. So that's, we're at the time of this recording, we're doing it a little bit later than what we normally do, and that's because she had her first high school volleyball game. She's a freshman, and she's on JV, so I was super proud of her.
All right, so she's on the right curve.
Yeah, she's on the right side of the curve, which is good. But I'm sitting there, and their middle school or junior high team, they were nasty, bro. I mean, they lost a total of 3 sets all year, or excuse me, across 2 seasons.
Okay,
3 sets. So they were city champions, 7th grade, city champions in 8th grade.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
I think they lost 1 set or 2 sets in their 7th grade run, and then 1 set in their 8th grade set. Okay. So they were super dominant, and life happens, and I'm looking at this from a metaphorical, if that's a word, viewpoint. Knowing that we're getting ready to get into the lab, and I like to kind of pan out and look at life through a different perspective or through a different lens. And what I thought about, and I know this isn't necessarily the topic that we're going to be talking about tonight, but I think it is relevant. They were down 22 to 17, so about 5 points or so. And I'm watching my daughter. She's the one that's like, yo, we got it. We can do it. Excuse me, we can do it. Let's go, team. Rah, rah, rah. She's not a cheerleader, but she's the one she's the glue.
Gotcha.
Like that's who she is. You know what I mean? And it got me to thinking about the word hope, right? For a couple of different reasons, and hopefully this kind of comes to fruition during our conversation tonight. By the way, welcome back to the Vision Lab podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Cuffey, alongside with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Mosley, and we're just going to pull back the curtain today and just chop it up and let you know what's going on behind the scenes as Mo and I just literally talk shop and how we normally do, right, on the back end of things. But so I'm watching her and I'm thinking about the word hope, right? They're down by 5. She's the rah-rah, let's go, we got this, come on, dig in, yada, yada, yada. And it got me to really thinking about who we were in 9th grade, in high school, right? Or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, whenever it was, right? At what point did we allow hope to escape?
Ooh.
Yeah. At what point did we allow hope to escape and reality to fill the cup? This show is really about what's external to your cup. A lot of times our cup is filled with past traumas, history, experiences, whatever. And it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. I don't want to paint that picture, right? But as we go through life and we have these experiences that we tuck away for the future, right? Another moment happens in our lives and we recall that, right? And I think that starts to really eliminate hope. So fast forward, they're playing, they're down by 5, then down by 4, 3, 2, tied up. Volleyball, you got to win by 2.
Right.
And I'm watching it, and the energy, as expected with any sport, right? The closer you get to the completion of the set, match, game, etc., the more heightened it gets. But they're all locked in. Both teams are locked in, and both teams, exhibited hope. Like, just make the play, do the right thing, and you really start to look at like the fundamentals. Who's going to
What do you revert back to?
Well, you got to go back to the fundamentals, right? So how analogous is that for us in our lives? And this is the things that I'm thinking about, because I know we're jumping into the lab, and I'm like, man, no matter where you are in your life, one of the things I love about Kobe, and I think we had, I think it was Wes Atwood that talked about Kobe being so obsessive with the basics, proper footwork, jab, and this is a multi-time champion, multi MVP, yada yada yada, like accolades galore. But he was so obsessed with the fundamentals, the basics, right? And I'm watching these girls in crunch time, right? Legit crunch time. Now at this point, game is tied. They don't go into overtime, but they keep playing until you win by 2. And I'm looking at little things like, okay, who's got their footwork right? Who's, setting the right way? Who's volleying the right way? Who's in the gap where they're supposed to be and things like that? Because at that point, it really is whoever makes the first mistake, right? Mm-hmm. And I really started to think about that as it relates to, our lives. Like, let's say you're in a valley right now. Are you going back to the basics? Are you doing the right things to put you in a position to get out of that valley and get back to your peak, right? So just food for thought. Now, spoiler alert, they came back, they tied it up, they went up by 1, and then they ended up losing the game. But it was dope. It was dope.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah,
the fact
man.
She's in high school now is amazing. Shout out to Anaya.
Hey, Bear, what up?
So you asked me, I'm in charge of today's topic, and I told you I was having an internal debate with myself. But the word for this current stage of life, if you will, or in my journey right now, is focus. And I told you I was having an internal debate about some other things, but it's really focus and just completely eliminating all distractions, i.e., the lab, if you will. And so focus has been like really just pounding in my head for the past few days. When I think of focus, I think of like, case in point, I'm in the development and construction business. And so I met with a guy earlier today, he and his partner, and the meeting went great. Me, him, and somebody we used to have on the show, like it was a really good meeting. And the guy said, man, I'm gonna be honest, I looked you up on LinkedIn to make sure you were legit. He's like, you got your hands in a lot of pots. I said, I do. I said, but I'm focused on 2 things. It's development and construction. I said, outside of that, everything else is at best up for consideration. He said, me too. And we met for a good hour and a half. All this to say, visionaries, whether you are, an auto mechanic, whether you create apps, whether you make cigars, whether you make your own spirits, be that liquor, rum, tequila, you brew beer, if you throw events, if you're a caterer, whatever it is that you do, that whatever it is you've chosen as your passion, as your vehicle to pursue your, whatever happiness and success looks like for you, focus on that, and everything else has to be by the wayside. And I say that because, me, I can talk to anybody, but people are calling like, well, I got this and I got this and I got that. And I just had to get to a point probably about a month ago. I just had to get to a point where it's like, I literally don't have time for that.
Don't have the bandwidth.
That's the word. I don't have the bandwidth for it. I am focused on development. I am focused on construction.
But that's honestly,
if it ain't that, it's got to go to the side now.
That's how it should be, right? I think when you start off, you want to have your hands in every pot, right? To kind of figure out what your taste and preference is, how you need to move in this space, so on and so forth. But as you get better, as you get more refined, as you get more familiar with how to navigate these lanes in the space, then you should get more focus. You should that focus should be more and more narrow, to the point where you are right now, where it's 2 or 3 things, and if it doesn't fall inside of that scope, it's a back burner situation.
Like some people call it like finding your niche. I don't know if I want to define it as that, but it's really like this is what I'm really good at. This is what I'm focused on. This is these are the type of people I need to be able to talk to or have conversations with. And it's just outside of that, that's a good word, I don't have the bandwidth for it. And I'll stretch myself to no end, but I just don't have the bandwidth for it. And I'm saying this in a way that, again, whatever your pursuits in life are, focus on that. Like, you know, in your heart of hearts, what you are passionate about, what you want to wake up every day and do for a living, or do for your daily activity. Figure out a way to pursue that with all your fervor and being and energy, and go after it till the cows come home. Like, that is what has really been, like, you know, the things I've experienced over the past couple of weeks. That is, like, that would be my message for tonight in regards to focus and everything that falls underneath that word focus.
You know, I'll double down on that, and that's obviously sage advice. I sent a reel to my brother late last week, and it was Jim Rohn, and everybody knows Jim Rohn is well renowned and just a fantastic motivational speaker. And I don't even think that was really the phrase or term that they used back then. But one of the things that I was able to extrapolate from his seminar was, if you want to be the best version of yourself, it does take that locked in approach and focus. But in addition to that, you should be working every day to make yourself better.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
1,000%.
And if you're concentrating on you being better every single day, guess what? You're going to be better than you were a month previous, 6 months previous, a year previous. And I know a lot of this is cliche, but I think it speaks to exactly what you're talking about in terms of, you know, being locked in on a couple of different things. I know I'm good at this. Well, how can I get even better? Like, obviously, I've taken on some new ventures. I'm doing some capital raises right now, which is super exciting for me. And not only is it exciting because it's something I've done before, but now it is a legit focus. But how can I get better, right? And the first time that you do anything right, you're probably not going to be as great as you would be if you've done it 100 times. And your 101st time is not going to be good as your 1,000th time, right? So on and so forth. And so now it's really cool, and I'm glad that we're talking about this, because it's helping to shape and narrow my focus on the things that, you know, that really drive me. And then inside of those lenses, right, what can I do to make each individual step better, i.e. make myself better? So it goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning. So visionaries, like, if you have the luxury of knowing exactly what you want to do, even though you may not be there, you can start to develop the skills or develop yourself to get to that point that you need to be, right? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So it's interesting that you're talking about focus. So now I'm going back to the drawing board. I'm going back like Kobe, going back like Steph Curry, getting in my lab, and I'm literally like writing it out, and we're gonna perfect that. And once you got the simple thing like a jab step, right? Once you have a simple thing like just getting off the ball, football analogy. Once you have a simple thing down like being able to just cross over dribble, whatever the situation is, you got to break it down all the way to the very, very, very bottom of the barrel basics.
The bare bones, granular details.
And be great at that. And then add on. And then be great at that. And then add on. And then over time, you will be a master of whatever trade, skill, etc. that you're looking to do.
To add on to that, you know, my thing is, I always want to be the quote unquote dumb one in the room. There is so much.
I wouldn't say the dumb one. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
Sure, that's a better way to put it. That's a more tactful way to put it.
We're working on that.
Well, I got it, but I understand your sentiment. There is also something to be said for when you are focused and when you are working on people that match your energy or have the same type of fervor and enthusiasm and the same type of, the word is spirit, the same type of spirit that you have. Because from my perspective, there is nothing worse than sitting in a meeting with somebody and it's like, you could tell like they really don't feel like being there. And I don't care if it's Zoom or in person. It's like, dude, if you don't want to have the meeting, don't even schedule it. Don't schedule me for it. Like, I don't have that time to waste. I really don't. Like, if you're really trying to get it done, cool, let's talk. But if in your heart of hearts you'd rather be somewhere else, by all means, please be there. Don't waste my time, because I could be using that doing something more productive than talking to you.
You know, we've done this well over 200 plus episodes, 5th year, 5.5 years doing this. And, you know, you said something just now that really took me back. And maybe it's because I was talking about my daughter being in high school, but I don't know how y'all did it in Mesquite, right? But like before the games, and this is late 90s, you know what I'm saying? We were doing this, and I knew they were doing it well before I even got there. But you go into the locker room, it's game day, and you would get locked in. You know, you do your tape session, and then you have your position meetings, and then you'd have roughly 30 to 45 minutes of straight up downtime. And this is the first time that visualizing actually was made known to me. And I would use that 30 to 45 minutes, and I would listen to my Discman for all my
Sony Discman.
old heads. Yeah, well, it was a Sony Discman, and you know, I would listen to one song on repeat, but I would get so locked in, bro, just so locked in. And I think that as we get older, we forget how to just get locked in. I mean, we've got all these different things that are pulling at our attentions, whether it's kids, bills, your job, your passion project, whatever it is. You're pulled in so many different directions that you can never manifest the best version of yourself because you don't give yourself the opportunity to sit, be still, get locked in, whether that's 30, 45 minutes or what have you. And we've had so many people, especially at the first part of our podcasting careers, where people would talk about the value and the benefits of meditation.
Yep.
Right. I just think it speaks so much volume and so much truth to what you're talking about in terms of being able to get locked in on those 2 or 3 different things, and then taking them down to the studs and focusing on those, you know, whatever 5, 6, 7 things that you need to master to become the best version of yourself, so that you can live the lifestyle that you want to live. You know, I think it's Jim Rohn that says you got to do the things that people don't want to do so that you can live the life that people don't live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard multiple versions of that.
Yeah.
It's really I'm in this cool spot from both a professional and personal standpoint. Like I started writing a book. Like I've got the quote unquote, you know, opening part of it. I mapped out the chapters. Now obviously, you know, it's a true labor of love. Like I got to find the time to actually do it, because when I mapped the chapters out, that was the easy part. Like, okay, how do I want, you know, what order I want this to go in? But then I looked at my outline and I was like, oh wow, this is a great outline, but you got to fill this in with like words. And it's like, okay, how do I go about doing that part?
Tell you exactly how. You get you some whiskey or some tequila,
man,
have a cigar.
I got to find the time to do that.
Get to where you need to be. And
I'm behind on my reading for this month, let alone writing my own book. That's another conversation. Anyway, it's really, I said, focus has just really been, because I look back at my call log. I look back, my Gmail account is like, I'm at damn near at capacity. Like I find myself deleting stuff every day because I'm at capacity.
I want to pay for that 100 terabytes.
No, for what?
So you don't have to delete stuff.
Honestly, I need to go out and clear my drive out. That's what's really taking a lot of the capacity. I need to clear my drive out. Now, again, side conversation. Focus, just being extremely intent and what's the word? It starts with the
intentional?
D. No, sorry, being extremely intentional and deliberate. Being intentional and deliberate about what exactly it is that we're trying to get accomplished in said meeting, said podcast, said phone call, like all that stuff. Like I'm extremely intentional and deliberate. Like I had a phone call 3-4 hours before we got here. Hey, look, we got 10 minutes. We're going to talk about this project. That's it. Period. And the other 2 things, the same group of people, the other 3 things we're working on, we'll talk about that on Friday. But this next 10 minutes while we're all on the phone together, we're going to do this and get that knocked out. Cool. Let's go. It's, time is money right there. It's one thing, but just focus is a hell of a thing when you really find the lane you're supposed to be in, and you start encountering others who are in that lane and see things the same way you see it. And it's like, oh, I remember we did an episode a long time ago about kind of finding your tribe, if you will. Mm-hmm. When you really get amongst your tribe and people who see it the same way but bring different things to the table, it's a hell of a thing when everybody starts cooking and bringing their dishes to the table. It's a nice dinner.
So, for lack of a better term, what happens when you have brain fog, right? And you're focused.
Oof.
You know what you want to do, but like your book, for example, right? Or maybe that may not be a great example because
it's a time thing. It ain't a brain fog.
Yeah, you can't allot the time for it. But let's just say that you have a brain fog. What advice or recommendations do you give to our visionaries on how to circumvent that, how to get around and above?
If you find yourself in the sense of brain fog, writer's block, or like, oh hey, I up and discovered a free 45 minutes today. What am I going to do with that 45 minutes that I didn't plan on having today? Ask yourself what's important, what needs to be, what, not even quote unquote what needs to be done right now. What am I capable of getting done right now? Because it's two sides to it. Like, okay, I know what needs to be done, but am I in a position to get that done this very minute? I might not be able to because I might need the help of somebody else. But if tasks B and C, if I can get that knocked out in this free 45 minutes that I just found throughout the day, and I don't need anybody else to do it, snap out of that brain fog and get those knocked out. Get you a win on the board for the day. Like,
stack the wins.
It could be something as simple as, hey man, look, owner's out of town, so I know we're supposed to talk on Thursday. Can we reschedule this call for next Tuesday? Get with the construction lead. Let's find out what time we can all talk on Tuesday. Cool. Let me get the time zones organized. Blah 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 blah. Let's get this knocked out. Let's go. That's a win. And before you know it, you stacked. This free 45 minutes you found in your day. You stacked 3 wins on the board, and you eventually get enough wins. You win a series. You go to the next round.
That's
so on and so on and so forth. And then you look up and you're celebrating with a trophy, i.e. closing or something along
or a
those
bag.
lines. Hey, amen to that.
But that's great. But let's give some practical solutions, right? And I think one of the things that you could do is be deliberate. That was a word that you used, yes. Right? So if you do have a brain fog, right? Maybe it's going out and exercising, getting the heart rate up. Maybe it's sitting down and being still and being quiet for a specific period of time.
Turn off all the devices in your house.
Yeah.
Turn off everything to where it's completely quiet. Or some people like to, go in pitch black room. Like whatever.
I've got a prayer closet.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat. But if you find yourself in that position, do that. And that'll bring you back, quote unquote, to center.
Yeah.
And then you can get back get back to doing what it is you got to be doing for the day.
One of the things that, and I know you kind of, I don't want to say learn this from me, but maybe was reminded by me to carry a book around. Now, ironically, you don't have it tonight, but
yeah, I don't have my notebook with me.
But you're deliberate about taking notes throughout the course of the day. We had Dan Maitland a long time ago, the CEO and founder of one of the companies that we worked at. He had basically like a library of notebooks from all the notes that he was taking.
Yeah, I'm starting to build one in my man cave too.
So oftentimes, I know I struggle with this. Do you go back and like look through your notes from January or February?
Sometimes. And I hesitated because what happens is when I transition from one notebook to a new one, what I'll do is I'll go back and look through there and figure out, okay, what is absolutely important that needs to transfer over to the next book? Because, all ideas ain't going to come to fruition. Like there's some things like, okay, we tried, this just didn't work, or for whatever reason, it hit the floor and just never got picked back up. But then you go back through there and like, oh, wait a minute, this has legs now. Or this was a thought, and now all of a sudden, look at what we're working on. Mm-hmm. So you transfer that over to the next book, so that way you don't lose it in the transition from one notebook to another.
I think one of the things that people can do if they're not transitioning between book 1 and 2, 2 to 3, so on and so forth, is go back and review your notes on a quarterly basis at minimum, right? Something that happened, 90 days ago is still relatively fresh. And it could be that spark that you need to get out of that brain fog or get over that mental hump or hurdle, right? We talked about meditating. We talked about being active. I think a lot of the times what we're putting into our bodies has a major effect on the way that we're thinking. I mean, there's studies that show the brain is linked to the gut. Mm-hmm. And what you're are consuming on a daily basis does affect how your mental or brain output is disseminating information and giving off information. So I would also say, I love to fast, right? I don't care if it's a 3 day, 7 day, 9 day, 10 day,
42 day,
42 day, whatever it is, anything in between or longer, right? You can leverage those times to really clear the mind. So those are some real life, tangible things or examples that you visionaries can actually apply to your life if you're in that moment. So I agree with everything that we're talking about in terms of like focus, but let's be real. Like sometimes you are locked in, but it just ain't, it's not hitting. You're not where you need to be, and you know it. And so if you're out of sequence or off balance or whatever the situation is, I think those are some viable tools that people can leverage to kind of get back in alignment.
So it's not a crime to not be where you want to be or where you know you need to be. It's not a crime to be in that position. It is a crime to just be content or just to fold up shop and stay there.
Man, you just hit on something there, brother.
There's the crime.
Yeah.
When I was a football player, and you'll understand this terminology. D-line coach say, hey, it's not a sin to get zoned. It's a sin to stay zoned. Mm-hmm. It's not a sin to get reached, but it's a sin to stay reached.
Where's your fight?
Yeah, exactly. Like you better be able. Okay, your body, his body, your eyes are leveraged. You better figure it out. So
we can spend some time here, bro. We can really spend some time.
Yeah.
Here.
To your point, like we're never a quote unquote finished product, right? There's always a little bit of room to get better, but you can't don't get down on yourself. Or beat yourself up like, oh man, I'm not where I figured I would be, or don't let Instagram or other things make you think that you're just so far behind the race. Everyone's running their own individual race. Mm-hmm. Don't let what somebody else is doing affect how it is you got to do what you got to do, because your journey might not be their journey. Your methods are not their methods, and as we all know, some people on Instagram are lying. And then when you see the quote unquote finished product on IG or whatnot, you have no idea what kind of hell that person went through to get to that point.
That's the iceberg effect.
Yeah, there you have no idea. Or like I said, we see ducks just flying around on a pond or whatever.
You know how they're pedaling.
Yeah, but look under. No one talks about what it looks like underneath, and those feet are just going nuts. So all this to say, catch brain fog, get centered, take a deep breath, get back in gear. And don't let where it is that you want to be versus where you are, like, don't let that stop you from getting to your ultimate goal. Because as Nipsey said, I just didn't quit.
Yeah.
I just didn't quit.
There's a lot there, bro. Like, I think that in and of itself is an episode, and I want to spend some time there because as we pull back the curtain, let's just keep it a buck with our listeners, with our audience, right? This is a place that I've been in for the last 3-4 years. If I'm being 1000% transparent, I'm getting zoned. I know I'm getting zoned. The dog hadn't been the same dog and bite isn't there that was previous to this, right? I think when people go through a number of different traumatic, catastrophic events or whatever the situation is, right? Whatever your scale or barometer is, in your analogy, like if you're getting zoned, sometimes you just ain't got it.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's 65 players in a game. At some point, somebody might catch you a couple times.
Well, but
how do you react?
Exactly, but it's not about them. It's more about you, right? Like life is gonna life. We know that, right?
Very much so.
And you try to go back to the basics, and sometimes that's not enough. So I don't want to sit here and talk to our visionaries and act like, oh, all you got to do is meditate, pray, clear your thoughts, and everything's going to be hunky dory. No, it's going to take some resolve. It's going to take some fight. And guess what? You'll probably be tired in those moments because you just don't have it like you used to have it before, for whatever reason, right?
You might just not have it at that very moment.
At that moment, yeah, that's what we're talking about. And so I do want to keep it a buck with our audience, because there are times where you mentally you got it. You want to get out from underneath that zone block or whatever the analogy is, right? But you just physically you ain't got it. And so that's kind of the place that, and right? Like that's the place that I've been in for the last couple of years, and I've had these thoughts of, well, why is this happening? You try to break it down and you try to change. And I think of recent, I was like, and we talked about this before on one of our, I think it may have been episode 50 if I'm not mistaken, but not giving a damn and not giving a fuck and just going out and being yourself and that type of thing. And there's a lot of truth and a lot of merit to that. But when you are getting lifed and you're trying to get, and mentally you can beat it, I think that you got to figure out a way, or whatever excites, incites, motivates, drives, encourages, whatever the word you want to, fill in the blank with, right? Whatever it is that you got to do to get to that place and that space to do it, you can do it. The thing that often happens that people don't really talk about, I guess in this context, and you'll see it oftentimes in like things with like people that have PTSD, is that there's, when life happens to you, it really does affect you mentally, right? So we have to often figure out, how do we get beyond those moments of despair, right? And maybe it's through your faith, maybe it's through working out or whatever the situation is, man. But I want to spend some time here, particularly because like that's real. You know what I mean?
I heard a wise man once say that when calamity strikes, it's usually when fortune is close.
That's good. Say that one more time, please.
When calamity strikes, it's usually when fortune is close. Or the old people say the devil's always busy, and when you get close to doing something really good, it's when he shows up.
That's right.
You're right. Life is good. I used to tell my wife all the time, like, and this is, I'm knocking on the door 10 years of marriage.
Congrats.
Thank you.
I've never seen it.
It's a whole nother conversation.
I mean, we're keeping it buck. It's public knowledge.
True that. You can't stop life from happening. So, like, my philosophy is to try to avoid as many self-inflicted wounds, right? You try to avoid that. Now, again, no one's perfect, so there's sometimes sometimes mistakes just happen through. I mean, we know, just in regards to putting this podcast together, you're not gonna know everything. Sometimes you just got to figure something out as it presents itself to you. You can't have everything planned and mapped out all the way, because at that point, what's the fun in life? What's the joy in overcoming things? What's the joy in figuring something out, or an alternative route, or a better way to get something done when a issue or a problem presents itself? That said, you're right in the sense of, what happens when you feel like you're stuck. You got two choices. You can just fold up in a ball and go in the fetal position.
Yeah.
Or you can keep pushing. And ultimately, if those are two choices, you really only got one. Like everything you've been through in the past couple years, in your heart of hearts, your moments to yourself, talking to God in the bathroom mirror and your prayer closet and whatnot, somewhere in there, all the crap that you've dealt with, okay, Cuff, I got a choice. I can just kind of fold up shop and take my ball and go home, or I can keep playing. Well, and there's still time on the clock. And ultimately, I got one choice.
Yeah, for sure. But I think, it's very easy to say that and I don't believe that I've ever dealt with like depression. And so I don't want to offend anybody, but I do know that
you can see how it gets to people.
Yeah, for sure. And so when you're in that state, right, like you're going through the motions oftentimes, and you may be doing the legwork, but the oomph behind it isn't there. The confidence behind it isn't there, but you're doing the things. And I think that last magic bullet, if you will, is when you say, no, I'm done. Like Dr. Miles Monroe talks about, change will never happen until you're tired of your current circumstance. Right? And I think there's so much truth to that. Like you can get, I'm a big boxing fan. And so you could be in the corner just getting your ass handed to you. Right? But until you set in and throw a counter shot, whatever shot that is, a jab, uppercut, hook, whatever, until you set in, anchor down, and throw, you're gonna keep taking those lumps. Yeah, for sure. And I think that may be I know that's part of an answer, right? If your analogy, for those that don't get football, sorry, but it's good, right? Like life be lifing, you're getting reached, and you know you can't, and you're trying to work across. But at some point, you're going to have to drop that right foot and rip through. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever the situation
Take the back door.
Yeah. And it may not be that play, and that's okay. But you can't get reached every time. You can't sit in the corner, boxing analogy, and just get your head beat in.
No, eventually somebody will throw in the towel or the ref will call it off at some point.
And if it's called off in real life,
that is it.
That's it. That's it.
It's not Pac-Man. You do not get to put another quarter in the machine and start over.
Yeah. So this, let's bring this full circle. So this is why it's beautiful to just kind of have sit in dialogue, because I talked to you about Anaya and her first game or whatever, and that hope and that belief, and I think ultimately what we're talking about is don't ever let that go, regardless if it's couple minutes left to go in the ball game, couple of hours before the deadline, before the deal is done, whatever it is. Like, you don't ever let go. You have to learn how to
finish through the line.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to learn how to get back to those moments of like true hope and looking at the possibilities of what could be versus what has been.
Oh, it's even more than growth mindset. It's forward thinking. It's, again, you got a couple choices. It's woe is me. Oh, this sucks. Like, this happened, that happened. Okay, yeah, it all happened. But what about the stuff you said you wanted to do? What about the stuff you've been working for, your entire professional life? Or what about the goals you've written down in your notebook or your journal? What about the stuff you prayed for? All right, stuff has happened, right? Do you have the faith of a mustard seed? Do you ultimately believe in yourself?
That's really what it boils down to.
Do you believe in yourself? The great philosopher 2 Chainz said, "Believe in yourself. Who else gonna believe in you?"
Yeah,
like that's the truth. Like, ultimately, like, I encountered somebody a couple weeks ago, and it was just like they're like, honestly, man, like, it's kind of refreshing to just talk to you. They're like, we see what you're up to. Like, let's rock. So it's one of those things to where, again, life happens sometimes. You might find yourself in a space where you look around, there's nowhere to turn but to you.
And that's daunting sometimes, because it really does show if you believe in yourself. And let's be honest, like, there are moments where you may not believe in yourself. And I think you got to give yourself that grace and that permission to acknowledge that. I think what we're talking about is don't allow yourself to stay in that position. You know what I mean? Like, you may not be happy with the decisions that you made, and you may have lost that self-confidence. You may have increased in self-doubt, and that's real. I mean, I think what needs to be said is that everybody goes through that, but don't stay there. Get out of the corner, get off the mat, get off the ground, pick yourself back up, dust yourself back off, and let's get back to work. So we talked about focus, right? Another thing you'd mentioned, like on IG, the things that appear real aren't.
It's a matrix.
Yeah. Well, the thing I like to always tell people, it's like driving on the highway. And here in Dallas, we're lucky to have some of our highways have 6 lanes, right? Everybody's going at different speeds. Ideally, your far left lane or your top lane is the fastest lane, and then all the way down to lane 1, right? And Dallas, especially over here off of 635, that traffic can be brutal. And you've got one lane that looks like it's just moving. And what do when you see that lane moving and your lane is stuck?
Try to get over.
You try to get over. So now you done made your way over, and then what happens?
Stop.
You stop there, and then what else happens?
Bam.
The other lane starts moving, the one you just left from.
Yep.
Right? So I often compare that, when you're talking about IG, and, comparison is the thief of joy.
Man.
Right? So you're looking to the right and to the left and seeing Johnny and Susie doing all these different things and wondering why you're not. And you're constantly hopping from lane to lane to lane, looking to get on your fast track. But if you just would have stayed
and reel yourself in,
if you just stay the course, you can push through, and then all of a sudden things will open up and you're back, flying on cloud nine.
I mean, literally see it through, and this goes to focus. see it through, because you're right. You know, whatever you're trying to do, like, it ain't gonna happen just quote unquote overnight. Like, it's gonna take some sweat equity, things we talked about on the show before. Like, you're gonna have to put some skin in the game to get this thing to turn over. And I mean, you know, we had that meeting with that guy 5 years ago.
I knew you were gonna talk about that. I was waiting on it.
He straight up told us, he was like, look, before y'all get what it is y'all want to get, y'all gonna be tested. Universe is gonna pull you, it's gonna stretch you, it's gonna kick you, it's gonna check to see if you really are about what it is you say you are.
For sure, as it should.
Yeah.
You know, I think we live in such a microwave society with things being on social media that we just believe that inherently it should be ours. You know what I'm saying?
You put in the work, but you don't just get to just, you know, you don't get to just snap your fingers. I mean, old people and old people win the lottery, and people, you know, on their deathbed win the lottery, right? I mean,
well, we're so privileged, and we're so entitled, and there are people that may not have to work, and I think oftentimes that's a tough pill to swallow. That, you know, this guy over here didn't do anything, and he's killing it, and I'm over here busting my ass and going backwards. You know what I mean?
Or you feel like you're going backwards.
Or maybe you are. I mean, sometimes that is the reality. But again, stay in your lane. Focus on what you got to do to be the best version of you. And I'm just giving you kudos to the analogy that you brought up, because we look to the left and to the right too often. We should be looking straight and inward, yep. Right? So I appreciate the dialogue around that topic. And I think any visionary that's listening, like, there's some nuggets of wisdom right there. Like, y'all hit that rewind button and go back and listen to this. Like, keep your head down, focus on you. Don't look left or right. Look straight and inward. You don't ever look backwards.
There are a couple things I'm working on, and we get them across the finish line. Like, you know, we'll have some people from that world that'll come in and be on the show and things. And like I said, I started writing a book, and there is a story to tell. This has been an exercise in faith. It's been an exercise in consistency. This has been an exercise in pushing through. This has been an exercise in going through the ups and downs and riding the roller coaster. It's all part of the journey. It's what makes it fun.
It is.
It's what makes it fun.
It is. And I'm glad you said that. You know, I've been in this space, like I said, for a couple of years, and I looked up very recently and was like, where's the fun? Where's the joy? Where's the excitement, the energy? And when you don't have that, you know, Newton's law of energy, an object that's in motion stays in motion. An object that's at rest stays at rest, right? If you're not moving at the pace or moving in the direction that you want to move, you got to do something to create that energy, to create that movement. And it got me to really thinking about, you know, what am I doing internally and externally to move in the direction that I want to move. And I realized that I'm not having fun. You know, it is a journey, it is a process, and it can be daunting and challenging at times, but the beauty is in the journey, and that's where the fun is, right? Whenever you get there, how many times do we see, sports is such an easy analogy, but like, we just finished with the Olympics, right? So-and-so gets a gold. After that, it's over. It is over. Like, you get to celebrate, but the first thing that they talk about is what? All
the work they put in to get there.
Right. And then the next thing they talk about is what?
Getting right back to it.
Getting back to it to do what?
Do it again.
Do it again. It's always about the next step. And so we put so much on the final product or the finished product. We often forget what it takes to put all that together, because when you get to the finished product, it's over. You're looking on to the next thing anyways, because that's how we are hardwired, to look on to the next. So if there's any words of encouragement that you can take from this episode, it's keep your head down, focus on you, have fun, enjoy the journey. Even if you are in a moment of despair, even if you are in a valley, get locked in, get focused. I mean, we've given you some real life practical examples on what you can do. Pray, meditate, exercise, eat right, seek counsel. That's another thing we didn't really talk about, but I mean, you and I just are chopping it up right now, but like seek counsel and just have dialogue around this situation with people that you trust, people that you believe, people that believe in you. But never quit, never give up, never fold to or succumb to the pressures of life, right? There's so much beauty and joy. Like God blessed us with an opportunity to be alive in this moment. Like you were specifically designed and created for this moment in life. And if you take a step back and really think about that, like how freaking cool is that? Like you weren't designed to be as cool as you are and probably as hard as you think you believe. You weren't designed to be born in 1846.
Hell no.
Right?
Wouldn't live long. Wouldn't live very long.
You weren't designed to be, 100 BC. No. Like we are designed and created for this moment in time, and this is all we are promised. So I thoroughly enjoyed this, man. I'm glad that we talked about focus. I'm glad that we just chopped it up, man. It's been a while since we've done it. So visionaries, hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, we just wanted to pull back the curtain and let you guys see what Mo and I talk about, on the phone behind the scenes when it's just us two.
Indeed. Much appreciated, partner.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Visionaries, remember each time we jump into the lab, we're dropping nuggets of wisdom on the trail of life. Ultimately, my friends, it's up to you to pick them up.
Visionaries, my name is Ryan Mosley. He's Ryan Cuffey, and we'll see you guys next time on another episode of the Vision Lab Podcast.
Blessings.